My top 10 favorite Elvis movies. Here we go. Hey y'all, welcome back to Beyond Graceland. I'm Emily, and this is part 3 of my favorite Elvis movies. I'm counting them all the way up to my number 1 favorite movie at the time of this recording. Like I've said before, who knows? This list could change tomorrow. But as of right now, this is what I feel good with. This is my top 10 favorite Elvis movies. Here we go. Number 10, Roustabout. 1964 is when that one came out. And this one, I think, is a lot of people's favorite now. It's in their top 10s, a lot of people's. And I feel like maybe it wasn't before, but a lot of people have now gotten access to it, whether it comes on TV during Elvis Week, it's on DVDs, you can get them all on Prime now, except for one that will be on this list that I'll talk about how hard that one is to find and to even watch on TV these days. I don't know, haven't done enough research into why, but we'll get there. But Roustabout is just a really good story, and it was nice to watch. It's fun to watch. It's comforting to watch. It is not too typical of an Elvis movie. There are songs in it. There are probably songs, forgetful ones, and ones that probably didn't need to be in the movie, but that's to be expected in an Elvis movie. This takes place at a carnival where Elvis wasn't necessarily trying to get involved with, but in a roundabout way becomes the star attraction and helps those who are in need. Pretty standard, but this one just gives it a little bit different feel with a lot of the attractions that are also going on with the motorcycles and the side story of some of the other characters that he's trying to help out. Super cool. I remember the first time that I was able to watch Roustabout was when I was on a family vacation to Florida, Destin. And I used to go into this independent record store there all the time, and they also sold DVDs. This was probably, I would say this was probably around 2004, 5, something like that. And just happened to look at the on sale or discounted bin and picked up the Roustabout DVD. Took it home. I brought one of those portable DVD players to watch something while we drove 10 hours to Florida. And so I hooked it up to the TV and watched it right there. And yeah, it's been in my top 10 ever since. Roustabout has also been said to be one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite Elvis movies, so I thought that was super interesting as well. Number 9, Jailhouse Rock. 1957. Probably thought this was going to be in my top 3. I think a lot of people's top Elvis movies kind of follow chronologically, at least up until probably Blue Hawaii. Not mine. I do love this movie. At one point, it probably was in my top 5, but I don't know. There's something about it. Of course, I'll always watch it. I've even seen the colorized version of it, and I recorded that off of TV at one point, so maybe I'll go back and watch that. But super great songs in it. It's one of the movies that has the most songs in it that I like. The entire soundtrack is really good. There's nothing too cheesy in this movie. It was before that whole Presley movie formula. Shows a little bit rougher side for Elvis. Great storyline. However, for some reason, the character Hunk in this kind of gets on my nerves a little bit. And I know that he's probably supposed to, in a way, because of the beef that he has with Elvis's character, the jealousy. But I don't know. I think that's what's keeping me from having just it a little bit higher these days. I think that the acting is good. I think that it's really cool to see a lot of the original members of his band, Scotty and Bill and DJ, are in it when he's recording. And you can also see some cameos from his entourage, the Memphis Mafia. But other than that, I don't know. It isn't appealing to me as much these days. And, for whatever reason, I'm not real sure about that. I just feel a little bit more connected to some of the other ones that we'll get into shortly after the film had wrapped from filming, his co-star Judy Tyler and her husband were killed in a car accident. So Elvis really, that really upset him, and he sort of just distanced himself from the movie because it was a little too sad to see that, which is understandable. Number 8, Flaming Star, 1960. It's a Western. Who doesn't love a Western? This movie came out right after GI Blues. It's actually one of the critics' favorite Elvis movies, or at least the one that they didn't bash his acting skills as much. With a pretty serious storyline, Elvis plays a biracial character, half white, half Native American, which Elvis loved. And the movie really revolves around the struggles that some of those issues had at the time. This is, back in the 1800s. One interesting note is that the two brothers in this story, Elvis and his half-brother, was originally supposed to be Frank Sinatra and Marlon Brando. But because of the success that GI Blues had, they decided to give it to Elvis, rearranged a little bit of the script, and that was that. This one only had 2 songs, and one of them was just played in the intro, and the second was just a little number that he played on the guitar, and kind of an appropriate setting. Nothing, like singing Old MacDonald to a bunch of farm animals. Another one of Tarantino's favorites, and also liked by Andy Warhol. This is where you get the double Elvis artwork from that Andy Warhol created and that we still see reprinted millions of times today. One thing that I find interesting about this film is that yes, he got a more serious role because of the success of GI Blues, and basically was given a Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra script. However, this one did not sell as well as far as tickets. And I guess it's just because, the Western genre just isn't as big as the beach-themed genre of the time. It's kind of like music, right? You've got your pop rock music, and then you've got, let's say country. Not as many sales as something that is more broadly liked. The other one's a little bit more niche. I love Westerns, but as far as the ticket sales go, the powers that be, Tom Parker, made it clear to Elvis that you have to have a movie that a broader audience likes, and you have to have a big soundtrack to go along with it, filled with meaningless songs just to fill side A and side B. So this is kind of what happens. Of course, there's another movie right after Flaming Star that is in the similar vein of a more dramatic role, but having those back to back definitely set the tone that the production companies needed to make as much money as possible, because Elvis movies were what would provide a budget for their Oscar-nominated films. And so that's why pretty much after Flaming Star and Wild in the Country, you just saw the Elvis movie formula. And that's really unfortunate for us today. But number 7, Follow That Dream, 1962. This is a funny one. This is one of my all-time favorites. It's always been in my top 10. It's something that I can rewatch over and over and over again because it's just a feel-good movie. It's funny. It's got a great script. Filmed on location in Florida. You can actually go to the exact sites where they did film on location. That's kind of cool. And a lot of it looks the same these days. A couple of different storylines going on at once in this one. You've got Elvis and his family trying to establish homestead on a piece of government property, and some other people get wind of this, not so much liking it as you would expect, but also some other more non-desirable people trying to take advantage of what they're doing as well, setting up some casinos, and of course you can guess all of the funniness that goes along with that. Super cool movie. It's also, I think, the last time that we see Elvis with his natural hair in that one. I believe it's the last movie that we see him with his natural hair, not including the blonde wig from Kissing Cousins. Number 6, Wild in the Country, 1961. This is the one that I was saying that was back to back with Flaming Star. I love this movie. It's my number 6. It's a dramatic role. It may be one of the more dramatic roles. And I'm probably not alone in saying that this is one of Elvis's best acting performances. His job in the movie is not a singer, not an aspiring singer. He's a writer, or an aspiring writer. It's refreshing. We deal with some struggles, some personal struggles, personal growth, maybe some mental issues thrown all in there that you can pick out. One of his co-stars, of course, is Millie Perkins. And I think it's cool because I used to watch Elvis the early years. I think you can find those on YouTube these days, but I've got my VHS recordings that I did when it was aired back in the early 90s. Really loved that one. But Millie Perkins actually plays Gladys in Elvis the early years, and she was a co-star in Wild in the Country. Now, I feel like with the success of GI Blues, and then what comes after this, Blue Hawaii, kind of sets the tone that those types of movies are going to generate more money, not only for ticket sales for the production company, and it's going to be able to have their budgets grow and grow. And when their budgets grow, the payout to Elvis, and then the guy who got 50%, Tom Parker, I hate calling him Colonel because he is not one, never was one, never anything close to one. So he is referred to as Tom Parker here, even though that wasn't even his real name. So goodbye dramatic roles, at least for another 10 years. The Wild in the Country is probably the most dramatic role, or dramatic movie genre that Elvis was a part of. And in fact, it was originally to be even more dramatic, with the topic of suicide by one of his co-stars who played Irene Sperry. In the original script, she succeeded in suicide, but after a test audience was given the film, they decided to change that because the reaction was just a little too serious for them and what they thought an Elvis movie should be. So, no more dramatic roles, no more serious notes. Number 5, Viva Las Vegas, 1964. Let me know who all's here. If you're a huge Elvis fan, go ahead and give me that TCB lightning bolt that you see there. And if you are just now getting into the world of Elvis, give me the little disco dancer. Lets me know who all's here, who all's watching. And if this is something that you are enjoying, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button. We've got a lot more content coming your way, a lot of deep dive on all things Elvis. Viva Las Vegas. I would say this is a lot of people's favorite. It's really the movie that we've got an equal co-star with Elvis and Anne Margaret. Now, if you are new to Elvis, you might not know about Elvis's and Anne Margaret's relationship. It was kind of steamy, right? They did date. It's kind of on the DL, but it was serious. I don't know if they both thought that it would go anywhere other than when the movie was being filmed, but it was a real relationship. They really cared about each other throughout the years. She was at Elvis's funeral when he passed away, and she's always been there talking about how great a person Elvis was. As for the movie Viva Las Vegas, Elvis plays a car driver, race car driver, slash waiter, slash entertainer for a hotel. But it doesn't get to that cheesy point where it's annoying to watch, or that you felt like it was forced upon you. The Elvis Presley movie formula forced on to you. This was actually pretty enjoyable. It's funny as anything. A great soundtrack, lots of good songs on it. In fact, The Lady Loves Me was actually a song that I would do in karaoke all the time. Yeah, this movie still makes me laugh. Great movie, funny as hell. I'll always watch this one when it's on. Now, if you've been following along, then you can probably predict what the next four are going to be. However, if you're not, then this one's probably going to come to a little bit of a surprise to you. Number 4, Live a Little, Love a Little, 1968. One of my all-time favorites. Now, at one point, this was my number 1 movie. Can you believe it? The story is just so fun to me. I'm kind of thinking that maybe this one is in my top 4 because I first watched it a little bit later as an Elvis fan. I believe I was probably around 14, 15 the first time I saw this one. And it was because it was made available on those VHS reprints that, were made really big around 1997, I believe is when they came out with a lot of those things. So it was the 20th anniversary of Elvis's death. And so they really packaged a lot of merch and, reprints of movies around this time, and would package those in like bundles where you could get, I don't know, 5 or 6 VHS movies all in one thing. And so this was one of them. The storyline is really good. It's got funny. It's got a little bit of serious, more funny than serious. But Elvis is a photographer, and Malibu, it looks like beachy, although no beach scenes except for one at the very beginning, and it's not a beach party. That was refreshing. It touches on a little bit of maybe some psychedelics going on. I love the songs in this one. We've got A Little Less Conversation. It comes from this movie, as well as Edge of Reality. I love that one. That's where the psychedelics come in. Being a photographer, juggling these two jobs. One's for a more conservative photographer. One is basically for Playboy. So it gets interesting trying to juggle these things alongside juggling a girlfriend, I guess. Somebody who's interested in him, maybe more than he is in her in the beginning, but it's super funny the whole way through. I just love, love, love this movie. And Elvis looks great in it. Number 3, Blue Hawaii, 1961. This is probably still, besides Viva Las Vegas, the most viewed movie, I would say. It's for sure the top selling soundtrack, and it also has the most streamed Elvis song ever, Can't Help Falling in Love. This movie is just overall really good. Yes, beachy. Yes, lots of songs, but it's appropriate. I just feel like this movie was the beach movie of all beach movies, but it's still got some dramatic things in it. Let's not forget Elvis's mom in the movie, Angela Lansbury. Yes, Murder, She Wrote. She's hilarious in her scenes, and yeah, tropical themed, filmed on location in Hawaii. Good storylines, funny as hell, and just happens to have produced his best-selling, best streaming song of all time, Can't Help Falling in Love. So what's there not to like about this one? Number 3 on my list. Now, there's 2 movies left. Can you guess which ones they are? If you can, go ahead, timestamp it, what time in this video you're watching at, and then put what you think are the top 2, my top 2 favorite Elvis movies. Go ahead. I'll give you a second. Okay, you got it? So number 2, King Creole, 1958. This is going to be a lot of people's number 1, and I understand why. It has really been said to be one of Elvis's favorite movies, especially when he was first starting out. This is pre-Army. This was right before his mother passed away. And so we can see, and this is the last time, something in Elvis, something in his performance, something in what he's giving us to the camera, to the audience, that is captured. And I believe that just something isn't there after this movie. And I don't know. Maybe that's just because I've read so many things about him. I've watched so many documentaries, just interviews, people who knew him, all kinds of stuff. But there's just something after this movie that's just not there. And so I guess that's one of the reasons that I just love this one so much, because I'm automatically drawn into it. I'm automatically paying attention to it. His acting, the way he's embodied this character, Danny Fisher, which, by the way, was a book that was adapted to be this screenplay for James Dean. And that was done right before James Dean passed away in a car accident. So immediately they held on to it because they knew it was something great. And when someone would come along, they would be able to fulfill that role. Well, when Elvis had such great success with his previous 3 movies and just the overall popularity of him as an entertainer, they had to give it to him. And so, of course, they changed it a little bit, made the main character, Danny Fisher, sing a few songs, but he was not necessarily somebody who wanted to be a singer. He was just good at it. And so it fit along with the storyline and still held on to that dramatic role, even with the songs. And the songs were really good. The songs for that movie helped push that soundtrack, to number 1. So great deal altogether on that. You've also got huge cast members: Walter Matthau, Dolores Hart, Carolyn Jones, who went on to be Morticia in the Addams Family. This is one that's also been my number 1 at one point or another in my Elvis fandom timeline. Super great movie. I would actually say this is a really good one for those of you who are new Elvis fans. If you haven't watched many movies or any at all, start with King Creole. I think that would be a great starting point if you haven't seen any of his movies. And my number 1, yes, you have guessed it, if you are marking them off, there is only one left, and that is Elvis's second movie, Loving You. Came out in 1957. This movie actually has a cameo for both of his parents. It will not be Vernon's last, but it would be Gladys's first and last cameo appearance in an Elvis movie. She would pass away the following year. It has been rumored that Elvis refused to watch this movie after Gladys passed away because it was too hard to see her in that scene. This movie just oozes Elvis in 1957. I feel like that was when all the excitement around him was new, it was fresh, it was just, there was so much energy behind it and him and his career. And it just, in my mind, just has the whole Elvis image there. I guess for the majority of my time of being an Elvis fan, this was what Elvis was. Maybe a little bit more currently, I get a little bit more into the 70s Elvis, but this is the epitome of Elvis for me. It's basically, a little bit more dramatized, or maybe not, I wasn't there, version of his life in the 1950s. His hair, he's got it dyed black for the first time. It's long, it's poofed up and slicked back. It just, like I said, oozes Elvis. And I love the storyline. His name, his character, Deke Rivers, that's perfect. This one's got a ton of hit songs, fantastic soundtrack. All of the songs are appropriate, I believe, because that's just what the story was. He was this guy who's driving a truck, or a delivery guy who becomes discovered because of his singing abilities, and it's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to prove how good he is. And it's just high energy the whole way through, I think. I'm always trying to put myself in a first-time viewer. I like to do that when I read things, being a first-time reader, whenever that book came out. And when I put myself as a first-time viewer of this movie, I'm just drawn in immediately just by the cinematography of it, the colors and everything, the music, the script, all of it, the energy. I just feel like this was the one that Elvis was meant to play. I'll also add this to King Creole. If you are just getting into Elvis or Elvis movies, these two, Loving You and King Creole, best ones to start off with. It just seems so natural. All right, y'all, this completes my favorite Elvis movies in order all the way up to my favorite current Elvis movie. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts and what your favorite Elvis movies are, and I'll be back with more Elvis content real soon. Thanks so much for checking this video out. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this one, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way that you'll know each time that I put out a new video on Elvis, anything Elvis related really. And that way it'll help the algorithm boost these videos up and allows me to continue to do them. All right, y'all, thanks so much for being here, and I will see y'all real soon.